Starting on time. I'm not sure how many of you attended the other presentation 3 weeks ago. Anyone was here? No? So we should start all over one more time. So it's gonna be like part one instead of part two, right? طيب, did you attend Salat al-Jum'ah today here? Everybody? Pray Jum'ah? Everybody? طيب. خير إن شاء الله. As we said several times, I mean, the topic is Islamic Finance 101. And we have like a few things to discuss as an introduction to the topic. First of all, Islamic finance is not a brand new system that Muslims actually came up with. It is just a continuation of the same finance system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set for the previous nations. Okay? Maybe you all agree that the most important maybe difference between the Islamic versus the traditional finance system is the prohibition and the ban of riba. Is that correct? Well, riba actually was prohibited for the Jewish community as it was prohibited for the Christian community, and it is prohibited for the Muslim community. This is actually what the Quran itself, indicated clearly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, criticizing a certain, Jewish community for a certain period of time. He said, وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَا وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ. وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَا, like one of the bad characteristics of that community is that they used to deal with interest while they were prohibited from doing so. So the Quran actually itself is the one who is telling us that riba was prohibited for the Jewish community. Yes, we do have like a big question mark about the authenticity of the Bible that people read today and refer to as the Bible. But forget about the authenticity. Just open and read. You will find a lot of verses by Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and the disciples where they were prohibiting their community members from dealing with interest. So again, there is nothing new here, right? So if you feel more comfortable calling this system Christian system or finance system or Jewish finance system or Islamic finance system, actually you are absolutely correct. We are not coming up with a brand new system. It's just a continuation of the same divine guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set for us and actually He set for the previous nations before us. In addition to the prohibition of interest and the importance of banning actually interest and any business, any transaction, any partnership, there are some other features. When you hear Islamic finance, it should right away come to your mind that anything that is harmful to the conviction and the ethics and the value of the society has to be avoided. Even if the structure of the business is a halal one, the core business itself actually has to be a valuable one, has to be ethically and socially responsible one. So anything that challenges the ethics of the society, and you know very well what I'm referring to, that actually has to be avoided. Islamic finance means a kind of system where there is no ambiguity or vagueness. You get involved in a business, from day one what you will be giving and what you are entitled to receive. So you do not just get involved in a business or enterprise or project or partnership in which you do not know who's doing what. No, your rights and your responsibilities and your duties, are well known from day one, right? So there is no possibility of dispute. Oh, I meant this, or I was meaning, this is, something should not happen. Everything has to be documented. Everything has to be identified clearly who is doing what. Let's go back to the most important, characteristic of the system, which is the ban or the prohibition of interest. Now, everybody actually knows that riba is prohibited. By the way, if you prefer to call it riba, you call it usury, you call it interest, call it whatever you want. We do not care that much about the names. What we care about is the essence and the reality of the concept itself, as I will be explaining. But let's go back to the issue of the prohibition of riba. We do not have like any issue, we Muslims, when it comes to the prohibition of riba. Everybody actually knows that riba is haram. Even maybe common non-Muslims around us, if you ask them a question, do Muslims deal with interest? They would say no. I mean, Muslims try their best to avoid interest or avoid riba. But the question here, what kind of riba we are referring to? What is the definition of riba that we are talking about day and night, right? Sometimes you try to educate yourself by just going to the traditional, fiqh books and read about riba, and you find yourself maybe more confused, right? You read, for example, regarding exchanging, wheat for barley, or barley for wheat, or sugar for rice, or rice for, sugar, or apple for, orange, and so on and so forth, right? All these examples are correct. I mean, do not get me wrong. They are correct. But they are very irrelevant to our society. That's the issue here. They are very irrelevant to our society, right? Muslims in the USA in 2023 do not exchange barley for wheat. If I want to buy some rice or some wheat or whatever, I just use my debit card or credit card or cash money, or sometimes even cryptocurrency if you wish, and just purchase whatever I want, right? So those examples actually are confusing to us. And if you read further, you will get even more and more confused. You read about riba al-fadl, and riba al-nasa, and riba al-ta'am, and riba al-jahiliyyah, and riba al-nasi'ah, and you get more and more confused. So let's forget about all these different categories of riba. Although they are authentic, they are correct. I mean, nothing actually is wrong mentioned in those classical books. But again, the issue here is the relevance to our society. So from now on, when we talk about riba, and we say that riba is prohibited, we mean a certain category of riba in which its prohibition is agreed upon. Its prohibition is agreed upon. That kind of riba is very simple, very simple. It goes as follows, and I want you to remember this definition. It is the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. One more time. It is the premium or the surplus or the extra money, premium, that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. Now let's unlock the secret of this complicated definition. Premium and principal amount. So we're talking about two different kinds of money here. Am I correct? We have principal amount and we have premium. Principal amount actually is the amount that is given from one party to another. And the premium is whatever has to be paid on top of that amount. And we said that lender and borrower. So we're talking about two different contracting parties. One of them is advancing or giving money to somebody else, right? And that money financier or advancer actually is a lender. Okay? He's not a partner. And it's going to make a big difference as we go with our discussion. Lender means someone who is just giving money without taking any risk or liability. Okay? He gives you the money, you are absolutely by your own. You take that money, you make profit, you break even, you incur loss, he does not even care about you. Okay? You take $10,000, you bring it back, $11,000 within 1 year. You are absolutely by your own. So there is no partnership, right? It's just a loan that is given from one individual to another. So we have premium and principal amount from one side, and we have lender and borrower, and the relationship between both parties is very clear. It is a loan agreement. It is a loan agreement. No one is initiating any partnership. So the risk actually will be shifted, will be like put on the shoulder of the recipient of the money. And that inshallah will be discussed even further. So when we say the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender, along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan. This is scenario number one. Either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. Condition for the loan means that the borrower knows from day one, and the lender as well, that the money will be given by the lender to the borrower will never ever be paid as is. So a certain amount on top of it has to be paid. And that something has to be agreed upon. So you walk to Bank of America, I see a lot of banks around here, Bank of America or Chase or Wells Fargo, whatever, and you apply for $100,000 business loan. or investment loan or personal loan, right? And they tell you, okay, this loan is for 2% APR. What does it mean, 2% APR? It means if you want to keep that money for one complete year, then that amount has to be paid back $102,000 because the interest, the APR, the annual percentage rate is 2%, right? So the $100,000 has to be paid back 102. Am I correct? If you want to keep that money for 2 years, that's 104. That's a simple interest and not what they call it, a compound one, right? So when we say as a condition for the loan, means that you as a victim or as a borrower, you have to agree from day one that yes, I am willing to pay you $102,000 within 1 year, right? Riba is unavoidable here. Riba is unavoidable. If you start arguing with the loan officer, I'm practicing Muslim, riba is haram, well, good for you, but you are in the wrong place. I mean, you can find somewhere else, who's willing to give you $100,000 for 1 year with no extra money. But you are in the wrong place. I mean, Bank of America is not a charity organization. Go and find somebody else. So that is what do I mean by either as a condition for the loan. So you need to agree ahead of time to pay extra money. Now, by the way, whether it is 1% or 5% or 10%, it doesn't make a difference. We are not here to discuss details. It's just the concept itself that you agree you will be taking the money and you are responsible to pay back that principal plus premium, right? Now, this is what I mean by as a condition for the loan. Or otherwise, for the extension of its maturity. For the extension of its maturity, which means that in certain cases, you might be able to borrow money, interest-free, believe it or not, interest-free, for a certain period of time. If you successfully pay in full within that, allocated time, then there are no consequences. But if you default or if you did not pay in full, then you subject yourself to paying interest. Okay? So in this second scenario, interest actually is avoidable. Interest is avoidable. For the extension of its maturity means that you take $10,000 for 1 year, interest-free. But if you default or if you fail in paying $10,000 within 1 year, then you subject yourself to paying interest. Okay? What if you paid on time, $10,000 within 1 year? Then the loan will be an interest-free one. Okay? A very good example of the second scenario is here in the USA. Thank you. Credit card. I mean, you can hold a credit card and use it for years and years, right? As long as you know your limits very well, you do not use your credit card for cash withdrawal. You do not use it, you do not go to any ATM machine and withdraw money because that's an interest-bearing transaction. You use it for purchasing items or for paying bills, for example. And, every single month, like you pay the monthly statement or the monthly balance in full before the due date, right? If you limit yourself to those, limitations, restrictions, you can use your credit card for years and years without paying one single penny as an interest. So that is the definition of riba. From now on, when we say riba or interest or usury, we refer to this very particular category, right? Which is the premium that has to be paid by the borrower to the lender along with the principal amount, either as a condition for the loan or for the extension of its maturity. And now we know that condition for the loan means riba is unavoidable. If you do not agree, then no money. Now, for the extension of its maturity, riba actually is avoidable. Both of them are prohibited, but they are not in the same level of prohibition. And actually, it's going to make a huge difference in the actual implementation of the riba rules. What kind of difference it makes? What kind of difference? If riba actually is not avoidable, then it cannot be permitted unless there is a necessity. In some cases, like life or death situation, something that's really, urgent. Now, if riba is avoidable, then as long as there is a public and general need for use that transaction or that deal, then you can go for it. For example, using credit card. We all here actually do have credit card, and we are not committing any sin, by the way. We use our credit card, but we know our limits very well. We do not pay interest, right? Because riba actually is avoidable. That riba actually is the one that is mentioned in the the Quran, right? Again, riba has different categories. Some of them are agreed on their prohibition, and some of them are debatable. Riba al-fadl, for example, like exchanging wheat for wheat with inequality, right? That's something debatable. But when it comes to riba, like this kind of riba, that's called riba al-nasiyah. That's called riba al-jahiliyyah. That's called riba al-duyun. What is the reason behind the revelation of the ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين. Abdullah ibn Abbas reported, as you read in several resources, كان الرجل يقرض الرجل. كان الرجل يقرض الرجل. Like people used to transact and to lend to one another interest-free loans in the Jahiliyyah, like before the permanent prohibition of interest, and even after Islam, but before the final prohibition of interest. كان الرجل يقرض الرجل فإذا جاء الأجل قال إما أن تقضي وإما أن تربي. People used to lend to one another interest-free loan. Interest-free loan. So this is something belongs to the second category, if you remember the definition, or for the extension of its maturity, right? فإذا جاء الأجل, okay, whenever the loan is due or upon the maturity of the loan, either the borrower would approach the lender by saying, I know that the loan is due, but I do not have money. Would it be possible to give me more time and I will give you more? I'll give you more money. Okay, so both parties actually agree to introduce interest toward the maturity of the loan. Although they started clear, interest-free riba. You take $10,000, you pay it back, 10,000. But upon the maturity of the loan, they introduced riba. Or otherwise, maybe the lender would approach the borrower, it doesn't make a difference, by saying, okay, the loan is due, you have two options, either to pay me in full, and you're good to go, no consequences, or if you want more time, that's fine, but you need to pay me more money. فأنزل الله سبحانه وتعالى, Allah, based on this deal, He revealed the ayah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O you who believe, اتقوا الله, be conscious to your Lord, وذروا ما بقي من الربا, and avoid whatever remaining as an interest if you claim to be believers. إن كنتم مؤمنين. فإن لم تفعلوا, if you are not willing to quit, فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله, then you are waging a war against Allah and His Prophet. So that is the definition of interest. And interestingly, more than 95% of the interest-bearing transactions in the US finance system belong to this very particular category, the most severe and the most prohibited category. Let me ask you this. What is the main job? The core business of banks in the US? Well, in the US and even abroad. What is their main job? How do they make money? Lending money, right? There are like two main jobs for banks all over the world. Of course, some of them do the job in a halal way, and some of them do it in a haram way. Let's go with the traditional finance, capitalist, economic and finance system, right? The global one. Banks actually have two different jobs. Job number one is called the fund mobilization, and the second job is the fund distribution. Maybe it has a difference here. So they collect money from those who have extra money and they want to have some faida or some interest, and they give them maybe 2% interest by just opening saving accounts for them, right? So that's called the fund mobilization, right? And the second job is the fund utilization. Here we go. Fund utilization. They wait for those who are in need for money, and they lend them the money back for 5% APR, right? So they open saving account for those who have extra money, right? For maybe 2 or 3% APR, and they relend the money to other people who are in need for that money for 5%. The difference between 3 and 5 is 2. That's actually the revenue that the bank actually is making. I mean, this is the main job where they make money. So that is fund mobilization and fund utilization. Thank you. Mobilization and utilization. Of course, if the finance system is a traditional one, they do it in a very haram way. Okay, you open a saving account for a certain percentage as an interest, and for other people they borrow money with interest, with a higher interest rate than the one that they give to saving account holders. And this is the way that they make money. Of course, Islamic banks do it in a different way. right? They do not guarantee the principal, they do not guarantee the profit on top of the principal. Back to our initial discussion. That is the definition of riba, right? The challenge that we face here in this society is the gap between what we read in the traditional books and our real experience like in our daily life. Okay, in our daily life, we come across several charges. You either charge other people or you get charged by others. But those charges actually are not introduced to you as riba or interest. They are introduced to you as otherwise. Okay? And sometimes you get confused. Is this charge the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited or not? Okay? For example, how about overdraft charge? Overdraft charge. How about late fees? About penalty? About commission? Sometimes you come across interest, overtime payment, right? Bonus, cashback. I mean, those are the actual real terms that we come across in our like day-to-day transactions, right? Now, are those charges, whether you charge others or you get charged by others, are those the exact riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited or not? Our job actually is to apply that definition that we like repeated several times, right? And to find out whether or not that definition applies to those particular charges. If it is proven that someone is giving money to somebody else without taking any liability or any risk, then this is an interest-bearing loan and it is haram, even if it is introduced to you as otherwise. Now, this brings to our attention a very fundamental fiqh maxim or قاعدة فقهية. The قاعدة الفقهية goes: العبرة في العقود للمقاصد والمعاني لا للألفاظ والمباني. What matters in transactions is the essence and the reality, not the wording or formality. In other words, what we care about actually is the nature and the essence of the agreement, regardless of the terms that you use. If you bring a straightforward interest-bearing deal or contract and you just remove the interest and you put instead of it murabaha, musharaka, commission, I mean anything that's halal, it does not change the nature of the agreement. Riba actually is still there, even if the term riba is not mentioned clearly. This is what we mean by what matters in transactions is the essence and reality, not the wording or the formality, right? So again, those charges that we come across, sometimes we do not know whether or not they are the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. Our job is to unlock the secret of every single transaction and to understand its nature, its mechanism, who is doing what. If it is proven to us that someone is giving money to somebody else without taking any risk, any liability, any responsibility, of course, other than the default liability, which is something actually common in the Islamic finance system and in the traditional finance system, which means that if I give someone $10,000, there is always a possibility that he might deny the loan or he might pass away or just escape the country or go somewhere else. So the default possibility is always there. I'm not referring to this liability. I'm referring to the liability of the outcome result of the loan itself. Is the lender actually taking any liability? If it is a business loan, is he guaranteeing, right, his return on it or not? If the answer is yes, then this is actually the risk shifting model that we are referring to. Risk shifting model means that someone is giving money to somebody else, and the recipient of the money is the one who is taking the whole liability and responsibility. The lender actually is just relaxing and just staying, waiting, for that victim to pay back the principal and the profit on top of it, or the interest on top of it. Now let's take some practical examples to find out how to. This is actually a kind of like exercise for all of us here on how to identify interest-bearing loans in the real life and to avoid them. Take for example, someone is asking me to give him or her $10,000 loan. And I told him, listen, we are now in January of 2023. I'll give you $10,000, but you need to pay me back $10,500 by December 2023. Right? So this is a straightforward interest-bearing loan. Am I correct? You take 10,000 and you are by your own. You make profit, you break even, you incur loss. Respectfully, I mean, you are by your own, right? I don't care. So you take the 10,000 and you pay it back to me 10,500 within 12 months from now. Okay. Is there any difference between this scenario, okay, and the other scenario where I take those $10,000 to Bank of America and I open a saving account, not a checking account, a saving account, and based on the agreement between me and Bank of America, that $10,000 will be paid back to me $10,500 by December 2023. And of course, by the agreement, by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that 10,000 is guaranteed. I don't care about the bank, whether the bank lends the money or sleeps on the money. I mean, that's their job. So 10,000 has to be paid back $10,500 by the end of 2023. Is there any difference between those two different scenarios? The answer actually is no. The answer is no. So the first scenario is an interest-bearing loan. I give you 10,000, it pays back to me 10,500. And the second scenario is an interest-bearing loan. But the problem here in the real life, Bank of America is not introducing to you saving account as an interest-bearing loan. Well, it is just a saving account. We take your money and we give you $500. I'm just giving random numbers, so do not quote me there. 10,000 will be paid back to you $10,500, right? The nature of the agreement shows clearly that this is an interest-bearing loan, although it is not introduced to you as interest-bearing loan. So based on that, opening a saving account is not a halal option. Opening a saving account is not a halal option. Now, do we have any exceptions here? Can you open a saving account or money market account if you have any business in the stock market? Yes, you can, right? For whatever reason might be, if you are desperate to have saving account, whatever reason might be, can you open it? Yes, you can, right? We are not here to discuss details. We're here just to establish a very fundamental and basic rules about riba. Is opening a saving account a halal option by default or a haram option by default? Well, it is a haram option by default, right? Because this is an interest-bearing loan. $10,000 will be paid back $10,500. Second example. You have only, let's say, $800 available in your debit card, in your checking account that's connected with the debit card. And you stopped by any point of sale and you purchased an item for $1,000. Most probably the transaction will go through. You have only $800 in your debit card and you purchased an item for how much? $1,000. It went through. And then after just 1 or 2 weeks, okay, you received your monthly monthly statement that you have to pay the bank, okay, Chase, for example, $200. Well, that's understood. I mean, Chase paid on your behalf $200. But on top of the $200, you have to pay another maybe $40 more or less overdraft charge. Now, again, we need to pause here just a little bit and think about what's going on here. What does it mean? What does it mean that you have to pay $200 plus $40 overdraft charge? When that transaction went through, it means, again, from a fiqh perspective, that someone paid the $200 on your behalf. Is that correct? It's not a gift. You have to pay it back. So those $200 have to be paid back. It means that you borrowed, or if you wish, Chase in this case actually lended you $200. This is the default interpretation of what's going on. You have to pay back the $200. The problem here is not with the $200. The problem here is with the extra amount that you have to pay on top of the $200. So those $35 or $40 overdraft charge by default will be counted as interest, because Bank of America or Chase gave you $200 and you have to pay it back $235 or $240. You can easily argue that by saying, oh, this is a very abnormal transaction. It needs like more processing because you ran out of fund and someone paid. There is a lot of work has to be done in the background, to set off, what happened. That is very, very valid argument. We are not here to discuss details. We are here just to establish basic rules, right? Overdraft charge is a kind of interest. So you have to make sure that you have sufficient fund before you proceed with using your debit card for whatever transaction or whatever item that you want to buy. Another example is the late fees. Every single utility bill that you receive on a monthly basis does have a due date. Does have a due date. And if you default in paying before the due date, what will happen? You have to pay what is called a late fees. You have to pay late fees. Do you think that those late fees are a kind of interest? Again, let's do the same exercise. When I receive like an invoice or utility bill from T-Mobile, $190, okay, for the family plan that I have for me and for my family members. It means that I'm utilizing their service for one complete month, right? Toward the end of the month, I owe Verizon or T-Mobile $190. Technically speaking, I did not borrow money from them, but actually I owe them $190. In most cases in the Islamic finance system, debt is equivalent to loan. So when I say that I owe T-Mobile $190, this is not a loan because I did not borrow from them. Am I correct? Okay, I owe them $190 because of the service that I've been using for one complete month. So this is the debt, not a loan. Well, debt is equivalent to a loan in most cases in the Islamic finance system. And based on that, if I purposely, okay, did not pay the utility bill before the due date, then I'm exposing myself to paying extra money. That extra money will be counted by default as riba. So the late fees, believe it or not, is a kind of riba. You see? Let's take maybe the most obvious example here in this country is mortgaging homes. What does it mean to mortgage a house? Again, every single transaction, do not jump to a conclusion, just pause and think, try to process the information and find out, identify who is doing what. What does it mean to mortgage a house traditionally in the USA? It means that you are getting involved in 3 different transactions simultaneously. Okay? There is a sale agreement where you as a buyer or customer, okay, purchase a house from the landlord for, let's say, $700,000. And you do not have $700,000 cash, right? That's why you go to a mortgage company and you apply for a mortgage. And upon the approval of your application, the mortgage company would pay or write a check payable to the landlord on your behalf, $700,000. So they do not give you cash money, but they pay it on your behalf. They pay it on your behalf to the landlord. Of course, those $700,000 have to be paid back $1 million within the next 20 or 25 or 30 years. Now, the third transaction is the mortgage one, where the mortgage company actually puts a lien on the property, or they mortgage the property to secure their money. In case if your default, you just walked away, you foreclosed, Allah forbid, you passed away, you stopped paying for whatever reason it might be, they can go after you by just repossessing or by foreclosing, okay, and just getting the house back. So you're talking about a sale agreement and a loan agreement and a mortgage agreement. Is that correct? Right. We do not have an issue, again from haram and halal perspective, we do not have an issue with the sale agreement, and we do not have an issue with the mortgage agreement, believe it or not. Okay? Mortgaging the property of the borrower by the lender is halal, right? And it is a transaction that has been mentioned and documented in the Quran itself. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُوضًا. Rihan actually means mortgage. Someone is asking me for $100 loan for 2 days. And he said, okay, before you go back to Houston, I'm going to pay you the $100. With all due respect, I do not know him. Can I ask him to give me his phone as a collateral, or his watch maybe, to keep it with me until you come back and give me the money? Is there anything wrong with that? Nothing wrong with it. That is the mortgage that has been mentioned in the Quran. So mortgaging the property or having a collateral, right? Having a secured loan, if you wish, okay, is halal. We do not have any issue with that. So we have no issue with the sale agreement, and we do not have an issue with the mortgage agreement, but we have an issue with the loan agreement, because this is an interest-bearing loan. Okay, you take, or the mortgage company is paying $700,000 on your behalf, and you have to pay it back $1 million straight within 25 or 30 years. Now, if you end up having three different segments in that transaction, sale, loan, mortgage, two of them are halal and one of them is haram, can we just go with the majority by saying, okay, two against one, let's be democratic, and okay, two against one, then it's halal? No. Unfortunately, it goes the other way around, right? If it is proven that one segment of the deal is explicitly prohibited, that segment actually is more than enough to ruin the whole deal and to make it a haram one. So the default rule here is that mortgaging homes in the USA in the traditional way is not a halal option. Now, what is the alternative? Is there a necessity? Is there a need? That's a completely different discussion. Again, we are not here to discuss details. We are here tonight to establish some very basic fundamental rules of riba, right? Of course, I mean, we have exceptions. Of course, we have Islamic mortgage companies. Of course, we have fatwa of Shaykh al-Qaradawi rahmatullah alayhi and Majlis Europe al-Ifta indicate otherwise. All this is, I mean, all these arguments are very valid ones. But again, let's just establish some fundamental basic rules. Okay, we need to identify this transaction. Is it a haram or a halal one? Well, by default, actually, mortgaging a house is not a halal option. How about the حاضر إن شاء الله حاضر طيب إن شاء الله. Let me just give maybe one or two examples, inshallah, and I will open the floor. I already talked to Brother Yasser. If you are interested in continuing after Isha, you are more than welcome to do so. Okay, I'm available, inshallah, and we can just continue having part 2 after Isha, the one that we're supposed to have before Isha. Okay, how about the cashback? Cashback. What does it mean, cashback? It means that you use your credit card. Use your credit card for purchasing items. Okay, you purchase items for $100, but because of the cashback, $5. Okay, total amount that you pay to the credit card company is $95. So you are the borrower, and the credit card company is the lender, because you are using credit card. Is that correct? Now, instead of you pay, like borrowing 100 and paying it back 105, which is riba, okay, you borrow $100 and they pay you cash back $5. Net amount that you pay them is how much? 95. So cash back actually is the opposite of riba, because the one who is benefiting from it is the borrower. You pay less, you do not pay more, right? And if you pay more, that's the riba. We said several times the premium, it has to be paid by the borrower to the lender. Well, here actually you are the beneficiary. You are the one who is benefiting from the cashback. So cashback is the opposite of riba, completely the opposite. Is that clear? Okay. One more example. You want, was that? Yeah, I mean, this is the only halal one so far. And if you have any concern with it, just give it to me. I will be inshallah more than happy to take. How's that? طيب. Let's go with the final example, I promise, which is the owner finance one. Owner finance. You want to mortgage. Well, you want to purchase the house of your neighbor, a non-Muslim neighbor, John Smith, with no bank involved in between. So John told you that, okay, this house is for $700,000 cash, and of course you do not have $700,000. He said, okay, is it an option for you to do an owner finance, like in-house finance? He said, yeah, why not? He did his math, and he told you, okay, that's $700,000 price. I mean, this is the market value of the house, plus $300,000 interest for the next 30 years. And you tried your best to stop him from writing interest. He said, no, this is the deal that I have for you. You take it or you leave it. It has to be $700,000 cash plus, price, plus $300,000 interest on top of it. Do you think that $300,000 extra because of the installment, is it the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited or not? Okay. Think. Okay. There is no loan agreement to start with. There is no loan agreement. You are not borrowing money, right? You are just purchasing a house from John Smith. And John is giving you two options. Either $700,000 cash or $1 million straight for 30 years. Now, if the market value of the house, if the fair market value of the house is only 700,000, does he have the right to ask for $1 million cash for that house? Yes, he can. That's his house. You take it or you leave it. And there is a lot of transparency in the market. I mean, you can check, you can Google the price and find out that, this house is overinflated. So you just ignore him and go and find, another house. So if he does have the right of overpricing the house, cash money, he's asking for $1 million cash for a house that its value is only 700,000. Why cannot he break down that $1 million into 30 years, right? So, fiqh-wise, okay, having two different prices for the same commodity based on the sales options is halal, right? So even if he insisted in writing interest in the agreement, as long as you are not going to Chase to borrow $700,000 and give it to John Smith and pay it back to Chase $1 million within 30 years, if it is an owner finance or in-house finance, then actually the deal is not haram. Although the word interest or riba is mentioned clearly in the deal, but it is not the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. I think by now you can easily see the pattern or the consistency in the examples that we discussed. Our main job here, is to investigate and to scrutinize and to unlock the secret of those contemporary transactions and just find out if someone is giving money to others, right? And the principal is guaranteed, and the return on the principal or the premium is guaranteed as well, and that individual is not taking any responsibility, any risk, any liability whatsoever, that is the riba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited, whether it is introduced to you as riba or introduced as otherwise. And vice versa. If the term interest or riba is clearly mentioned in the agreement, but there is no loan agreement, it is just an installment sale, that extra money actually is halal, although it is introduced to you as otherwise. We have actually more examples to discuss, but the time is very limited, and inshallah, as I said, we can continue after Isha if you are interested. Now let's touch on cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, is a kind of currency. Back in 2009, it was not prevailing and well known and having that general acceptance in the same way that it is, gaining now. Maybe you agree with me. Okay? People started talking about cryptocurrency back in 2009. So the difference between 2009 and 2023 is the amount of prevailing and general acceptance. Yes, it is a decentralized currency. There is no official financial authority behind it, which is actually a very big defect in the cryptocurrency. There is no central bank, there is no government, there is no Federal Reserve standing behind it and claiming liability and responsibility for issuing cryptocurrency. Yes, there is a significant fluctuation in its purchase power, and that fluctuation is very I'm just trying to put it in a nice way. Well, there is no well-known reason behind the significant fluctuation in the market value or the purchase power of cryptocurrency. Sometimes the price goes up, sometimes goes down, significantly. And again, there is no factors, well-known factors or measurable factors behind that fluctuation, which is something that causes a lot of gharar or ambiguity, or a semi-gambling nature when you buy 1 unit of Bitcoin, right, for $5,000, and it goes up to $17,000 within just a few weeks, and then it goes down all the way to 2,000 American dollars after just a few days. It means that there is something wrong. When the American dollars goes up and down, like the purchase power, we can tell, well, we can measure the reason behind that fluctuation, financial stability, potential war with other, countries around, whatever the reason might be. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, there is no known, measurable reason behind that fluctuation. The third, defect that we have here or concern is the possibility of tax evasion and money laundering. Some people actually use cryptocurrency for illegal financial activities. At the end of the day, in 2023, the level of prevailing and general acceptance became very significant and recognizable, right? A lot of central banks and intercontinental actually companies do accept cryptocurrency as a method of payment. In the United States here, back in 2021, if I recall, the IRS started charging tax on cryptocurrency. The IRS started charging tax on cryptocurrency, acknowledging that this is a kind of business, a kind of investment, a kind of wealth. Now, our official position as a fiqh council, as AMJA, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, we do not dare saying that this is a haram transaction, this is a haram deal. What we are saying here is that if you decide to get involved in cryptocurrency, you need to be extra careful. It shouldn't be within your comfort zone, right? When you purchase, trade in cryptocurrency, buying and selling, and ask yourself a very simple question: what kind of value you are adding to the society? You are making profit based on what? Are you producing something? Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you trading? Are you commissioning? Are you manufacturing? The answer is none of the above. It's just like a semi-gambling nature business. You buy something that you do not know and you sell. Sometimes the price goes up, sometimes it goes down. Into hadak, right? It depends on your luck. So this is not the nature of business and investment that you as a practicing Muslim, you want to get involved in. I always say real estate is the real investment. Real estate is the real investment. If you want to make money in a halal way, away from banking system, just purchase some real estate properties, rental properties, a piece of land, rent it, do whatever you want, okay? Make some money. Yes, I mean the profit margin is not that significant, but you are 100% positive that the nature of your business actually is halal. But to speculate and trade in cryptocurrency, it should not be an option for you as a practicing Muslim. Again, it's not haram. It is a very risky and a very nonsense business that a lot of people are getting involved in. A young man in our community in Houston, Texas, I kept advising him a while ago. His name is Muhammad. Muhammad, stay away from cryptocurrency. He did not listen. He purchased cryptocurrency for $250,000, and within 5 years, okay, the amount jumped to almost $1 million. So he made maybe $750,000 profit within 5 years. Wallahi, within just a few weeks, the amount went all the way down to 150. So his loss was $850,000. It was almost like talking to himself in the street. $850,000 loss. Told him, Muhammad told you several times, Baba, stay away from cryptocurrency. Okay, and I'm sure that maybe some of us here already get involved in cryptocurrency, and they incurred like a significant amount of loss because of cryptocurrency. Again, it's not haram, but it's not something that should be within your comfort zone. Let me just put it this way. If you insist and you have some saving, maybe you can designate 10-15% of the saving for cryptocurrency. Give it a try. But again, I mean, it shouldn't be like your primary investment activities, to put it this way. Let's open the floor for discussion based on what I already presented. So the floor is yours. Yes, sister. Can you say it again? Sorry. Oh, lease agreement actually is not subject to riba to start with, because the riba might affect either the sale agreement or the loan agreement. So lease to own is not subject to interest to start with. So, I mean, you can lease to own, I mean, safely. Just keep it simple. Lease agreement is not subject to interest, because actually we have only two different agreements that might be might be affected or inflicted by interest. Sale agreement and a loan agreement. And when you lease a car, you are not, it's not a sale agreement, it's not a loan agreement. So the contract itself actually is not among the contracts that might be, afflicted by interest. Just keep it simple. طيب. We take a Now we're discussing the lease agreement. Now, lease to own, okay, is another option. Like after 3 years or 5 years, you have three options. You either trade, like you return the car and you take another one, okay, or otherwise you purchase the car based on the residual value, right? Or otherwise you return the car. Now pre-deciding the price of the car might be an issue. That after 5 years, the car will be sold to you for $7,000. Well, how did we know from now that the market value will be $7,000? So this might be like something questionable, but it does not affect the validity of the lease agreement. It's still actually a valid one. عرفت أخي؟ نعم. طيب تفضلي. So how to treat the debts in a very inflationary environment? No. We aren't. We are not. Well, the Islamic finance system. Islamic finance system is not. Islamic finance system is not responsible for the default of the monetary system or the global monetary system. Okay, because. I'm speaking from a very theoretical perspective. Listen, Muslims are not responsible for the inflationary environment that people are experiencing nowadays, because basically currency has to be a kind of currency that has a kind of intrinsic value. I mean, this is the default rule, right? That currency should be either a gold or a silver, or like a regular currency, like bills that are backed up by silver or gold, right? Now the current monetary system and the currency, okay, and the legal tender that people use nowadays does not have any of the above. The only thing it has no intrinsic value whatsoever. The only thing that it has is the authority or the approval by the financial authority of the society. American dollars, for example, they are not backed up by any gold or silver. This is from one side. From the other side, in the Islamic finance system, loan is not a mode of finance. Loan is not a mode of finance, which means that if I know that someone is asking me for $100,000 as a loan, right, to take it to upgrade his business or to establish a new business, I should tell him no. I mean, why should I give you my money? Because you are a practicing Muslim and I'm practicing Muslim like you. So based on our principles, okay, you take the $100,000 for 2 or 3 years, and then you bring it back to me $100,000. You make money out of my money, and you give me my money back after 3 years. That makes no sense whatsoever, right? If someone actually is asking money as a loan for a humanitarian case. I mean, someone is struggling financially, wants to pay the bills or to bring food to the table of his family members, to pay the rent of his house or tuition fees, for whatever the necessity might be. I'll be more than happy to give him money for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months. And a part of my devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to incur the inflation, right? The inflation actually before COVID-19 was between 0.5% to 1% a year. Now, because of the bad monetary policy adopted by the Federal Reserve, inflation in the USA is jumping to 9 point something percent, which is something unprecedented. Back to our discussion, akhi. Loan, akhi, is not. Akhi, you need to listen, akhi. Loan, akhi, is not a mode of finance, عرفت, akhi. And based on that, if the Islamic finance principle is implemented, we will not even be facing this issue to start with. Because again, loan is to be given as a kind of sadaqah, as a kind of charity, as a kind of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when I know that someone is asking for my money for business purposes, I will never give him the money as a loan. Let's sit down and just talk business. We can establish any of those Islamic modes of finance, mudaraba or musharaka or ijara or whatever, okay, based on the Islamic principles. If there is a profit, everybody will be sharing a profit. If there is a loss, everybody will be incurring the loss. You see? So we are not actually responsible for a sin that other people committed. It's like when you want to hold me accountable for a sin that other people did. It's not the case. I mean, this is absolutely, we are not responsible for the inflation that is taking place.
Jazakallahukhairan, Dr. Ma'an, barakallahu feekum. It's Isha time, 8:15. Dr. Ma'an volunteered to stay here. I just have one request, inshallah. If you have a question or you disagree with the Sheikh, just do it respectfully. I know finance is a very hot topic at everybody in this community. Just be respectful on the way you ask and the question. You disagree, that's fine. Dr. Ma'an has a very extensive understanding of the financial Islamic system. Jazakumullah khair, and please, let's start the qiyam. Jazakumullah khair.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله